Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Live Before Lock. Vikings, Eagles. This is kind of fun because I did a show with Eric today, diehard Vikings fan. Obviously, I'm an Eagles fan. And now, God, I get graced by the presence of two Vikings fans. There's so many of them out there, and they just live a terrible life. Maybe they get a win today. I'm with Neil Orfield at PlayerQDFS. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D. Happy you guys are with us. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so yet, take a single second, atone for your sins here. Show us some love. Only takes a second. And maybe throughout the season we get to 100K subs. That'd be awesome. Thanks to you. Odd Shopper channels at like 85,000. So we're creeping, baby. We're creeping up on those 100K. So thanks to your guys' support. We'll get there soon enough. But Neil, I joke. You live a lovely life. But as a Vikings fan, things have been difficult.
Things haven't been great. We've never won a Super Bowl in the history of the franchise. Not even my lifetime, the history of the franchise. 0 Super Bowls won for the Vikings. We'll always have the Minneapolis Miracle. Like, I think that was one of the more exciting NFL moments in my lifetime, the Minneapolis Miracle. That was not a Super Bowl. So we'll always have that. But
what, the Saints game?
Yeah, the Saints game. Stephon Diggs. Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was such a great moment for us. Obviously not the same as the Nick Foles. I forget what that play is called. The Nick Foles in the Super Bowl,
Philly
drawn
special.
Up weird. Yeah, the Philly special. Like that's got to be one of the coolest in my lifetime as well. But we have the Minneapolis Miracle. We've had some good teams, but yeah, it's pretty brutal. Like going back to the Gary Anderson doesn't miss a field goal all season until the NFC Championship game. He misses his first field goal of the year to lose the game. We've had a bad run.
You'll get it back. Maybe.
Will we? I hope so.
Maybe. You got to get rid of Cousins. You got to trade him for like a top pick if you even could. I don't know if you could. Maybe get a desperate team like Eric was saying, the Jets. Maybe the Jets will trade you something good.
That's been the rumor, potentially.
It would make sense in my opinion. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. And it's not even his fault. Your defense isn't good enough.
Yeah, I think the Jets could win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I agree.
I'm saying
we're probably not good. Yeah,
Vikings fan aren't. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's fair assessment.
I'll tell you what, I'm not supremely confident in the Eagles tonight. They got to show more than they did last game, and it should be a fun game. Short rest for both teams, but I think it could be relatively high scoring. We'll see. Injuries on both sides, though. Vikings offensive line a little injured.
Yeah.
Eagles are missing James Bradbury. They're missing Reed Blankenship, a guy that came out of nowhere but has been very good for them. Kobe Dean's on the IR. Kenny Gainwell's down. That's like the least important thing from an actual chances of winning, because you better fucking play Rashad Penny. You better, not you guys. I'm talking to the Philadelphia Eagles, or I'm talking to Nick Sirianni. Better get Rashad Penny out there in all his glory and let that boy run. That's all I ask. But I could see this game going either way for sure. And I'm not just saying that to be the consummate pessimist. I could. They got a good team, a lot of offensive weapons. And when you faced the Eagles last year, you didn't have TJ Hawkinson to eat up the middle of the field. True. You didn't have Addison, you didn't have Brian Flores. We'll see.
It's a better offense.
It's better off. Hopefully for your guys' sake, not today, but hopefully it's a better defense. Hopefully Flores can figure some things out. But
yeah.
You ready to talk a little DFS for Thursday Night Football?
Oh, you know it. Love me some Thursday Night Football. I was thinking about putting people in timeout. I saw a couple people said fly Eagles fly. I was thinking about putting them in timeout for saying it just as a bit throughout the show. Anytime somebody says something positive about the Eagles, but I'm in a good mood. We got Thursday Night Football tonight. Yeah, I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah, well, you can do it. See how that works out. I mean, at this point, what I think would happen is chat would just mega troll, and even Vikings fans would start saying "Fly Eagles, fly," and it would be the entire chat, and you wouldn't be able to get to all of them.
It would be too much work. Yeah,
that would be tough. But breaking down this Philly backfield is going to be a tall task in and of itself. I mentioned to Matt Kajeski on the strategy show today. I was like, listen, I could see it going where Boston Scott gets a lot of work. I could see it going where Swift does, or even Rashad Penny. Like there's no real clear cut option here as far as, hey, this is the lock play in the Philadelphia backfield. It's kind of like you have to take your chances. You have to take some guesses. And if you're playing only one or two or three lineups, Godspeed, because you're going to have to take a stand.
Yeah. I mean, I think the situation better than you should be the one doing the analysis of the Phillies backfield. But I think that Are you on the same page as me that DeAndre Swift pretty clearly the likeliest to get the most run, followed by Penny, followed by Boston Scott?
No, I don't think that's
You're
it.
not on the same page as
Well,
far as likelihood, not like a sure thing, clearly, but
I don't. That's what I'm saying. I have no idea. Boston Scott. You said Swift, then Boston, or then Penny, then Boston Scott.
yeah,
Right, but Penny was a healthy inactive last week,
true.
and Boston
Okay.
Scott got.
Okay, wait. Let's just do the first part. Do you agree with me that Swift is the likeliest to get the most work?
No,
You don't even agree with that part. Okay.
but I'm also not. But I'm not saying. Okay, look, I'm not saying that Swift isn't going to get the most work.
Right.
I'm
You
not
just
even
don't have
saying
any
that,
feel for it.
I'm not even
That's all you're
saying
saying.
that he's not the most likely. But to me, I can't say that because I don't think there's like a. Nick Sirianni said after last game that there's going to be games where DeAndre Swift
Yeah.
leads the backfield, and then there's going to be games where he has a role like he did against the Patriots.
Right.
He didn't say which games though, did
No.
he?
Right. It was not very helpful. It was not the most helpful. Yeah, I think that Swift is the likeliest to get the most touches in this game. I like it's clearly like we don't know, but I think that is the likeliest case at the very least. Certainly complicated after that. It's tough because like this is really important. Like all three of these guys are very much in play. They're all too cheap for like their potential roles at the very least. I guess we can't say like exactly what we expect the roles to be, but I think that they're all cheap enough that like one of these Philly running backs is probably going to hit, with Penny being 1,600, Scott being 2,200, and Swift being 4,000. They're all like cheap enough that whichever one of them ends up being the lead back is too cheap for that role. So it's like we need to talk about it, but it's also so hard to decipher what's going on with this backfield.
For sure. Sean V said Laffy's completely missing this. I'm not. I don't even disagree with Neil. I'm saying I don't have a good feel for this, is what I'm saying. If you guys have a good feel for it, that's awesome. But I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, I think that Swift gets the majority of work and this and that. Like the Juice said, take what coaches tell press with a grain of salt. I agree with that too. But Penny was also inactive last week. And then we had a comment. We had a comment from the Juice as well. He said, so the Eagles acquired Swift just to give Penny and Scott more work. What do you mean though? They got Swift for free.
Yeah.
They got Swift for free.
No cost there.
If they cut him, they get if they cut him, they get a supplemental draft pick that'll be the same round that they gave up for him. It doesn't matter, you know? Yeah. And if they don't cut him, that's because they're using him a lot. They grabbed Rashad Penny as well. There's no real difference there in like capital that they've got, you know, invested in these guys. Do you disagree with that?
No, not at all. Like they don't have much invested in him. They have no incentive to play him unless they believe that he is the right running back for the job, which that's the reason that I think they're going to be playing Swift, is because I think that he is, but obviously what we think doesn't always line up with what the coach thinks. I've been trying to decipher. I was going back to my on Twitter. There's a new Twitter account like this past week called Coach Speak Index. It's at Coach Speak Index on Twitter, and it can be helpful in some situations. Doesn't even they don't seem to have a great read on what this means. Obviously it's a pretty indecipherable statement from Nick Sirianni. I was hoping that they could maybe like they'd look back at past statements by the coach to try and figure out like, okay, what does this exactly mean coming from this specific coach? But they don't seem to have a great read on it anyways either. So I don't know that anybody does. I don't think anybody really knows how this backfield situation is going to split, but I think that the likeliest scenario is that it's Swift getting the majority of carries. We haven't projected the best, so like it's maybe that's why I think that. Like I think any projection system is going to project DeAndre Swift the best of this backfield, and then it's I'd say it's more hairy for me at least after Swift. Like I think it's I have a stronger feeling that Swift is going to lead the backfield than I have about who is going to get the second most work from Penny and Scott. My guess would be Penny, followed by Scott. The over-under for Scott's yardage on the at least the pick'em sites that I was looking at is like 16.5 yards for Boston Scott, which that to me would indicate that we're not expecting a ton from Scott. But honestly, I think that we can admit that we just don't really know with this backfield. I think it could be a hot hand approach. It's hard to decipher. We do have Scott coming in at the lowest ownership. We have Scott at just 10% ownership. We've got Penny at 14%, and then Swift up at 27%. So I think that all are very much in play. I actually think you could play all three of them together. I was about to say I don't know that I would, but I actually think that you probably could play all three of these guys together, given the price tags, and just hope that, I mean, if you're playing this, you're hoping that they're just running all over the Vikings, that all three of them are mixing in, and maybe the guy who has the least yards ends up getting the touchdown. But given the price tags, I actually think you could play all three of them if you wanted to.
Yeah. Bean Dude, thanks, man. He said, I love the ceiling. I actually told my wife when we finished this basement, I was like, I'm doing really black drop ceiling. And
that's exactly what my wife would want in our basement ceiling. Like she's looked for exactly that kind of ceiling.
Yeah. Well, she didn't want to do it. And needless to say, this guy was correct.
And it looks great.
Thanks, man. She profusely apologized. She told me how sorry she was and that she'd never do it again.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah. I said, you better not. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, thanks, dude. And Michael Armstrong. All right. He said, I agree with the sentiment. He's talking to me, but sometimes it's more helpful to at least say which way you're leaning instead of just being neutral. Just saying. But why would I lie to you? Like, I'm not, right. I'm saying just, you can play all of them. That's what I'm saying. But if I'm going into like 20 lineups, I wouldn't feel comfortable with, let's say you were playing one of these guys in each lineup, just for the sake of argument, Neil. And we're spending time on this backfield because it's more important than anything else from a game theory, just from a strategy standpoint. We'll get to everything else in just a second. We got plenty of time. Like, for me to be like, oh, play 15 Swift, 3 Penny, and 2 Scott, that's just not something I would want to do today.
Right.
I could genuinely, and let's not forget either that that Rashad Penny's very cheap, and Boston Scott's very cheap. These guys are really inexpensive. So we also, another thing, we haven't seen a game without Kenny Gainwell because they've only played one game. They also haven't had goal line opportunities. They had one inside like the 10 or whatever against the Patriots where Hurts threw that dime to Devonta Smith. But outside of that, it was all defensive production and long 50-plus yard field goals for Jake Elliott. We haven't seen that. So we don't know who the goal line back's going to be either. If the goal line back is Scott, it wouldn't shock me. I'm telling you right now, it would not surprise me if Boston Scott was the goal line back.
We saw last year times when three different Eagles running backs scored touchdowns in a game. There's no real decipherable rhyme or reason to it. I think that Laufey is doing the right thing by saying, I don't know. I think that's a very viable thing to say. If you don't know, you shouldn't just lie. You shouldn't make up. I think that Swift is number one. That's why I'm saying that. But if Laufey, who watches the Eagles religiously, knows better than I do, doesn't have a good read on it, I think that's the right approach, just to tell people what you're thinking. Ryan says, Neil,
you could 100% be right. You know what I mean? You could 100% be right.
Yeah, I mean, I could be, and I could be completely wrong. I guess. Well, it's hard to know in this situation. This is a surly juicy pale. I forget what it's called. Juicy pale. Stun of Time says, I wonder if Neil would kick out Laufey for saying positive things about the Eagles. I've been trying to kick my coworkers out in chat for the past 2 years. Ever since I've had the wrench, I've tried to block people.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work, sadly.
They prevent mutiny here at YouTube.
They don't allow it. Yeah,
that's good. By the way, for those of you wondering, this came out like 40 minutes ago. I meant to mention it. Christian Darrisaw, starting left tackle. He's active for Minnesota. Davenport also active. He missed week 1, so that's good for you there. That's good.
Pretty
inactives for Philly: Gainwell, Bradbury, Blankenship, and I mentioned Dean, but he's on the IR. So. All right, let's wrap up this Philly backfield, then we can get into everything else. If you're, metaphorical gun to the head from, Couples Retreat, that's a good
Love
scene.
It. Yeah, that was a great movie.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a great, anything, Vince Vaughn, Jon Favreau, those guys.
Just a great cast.
It's a great cast. I would go. Dude, I want to put my heart wants to put Penny first, but I can't. I think based on what we've seen in the preseason and what we saw, based on what we saw in the preseason and what we saw in week 1, I would have to put Penny last. And I could Scott. See
that's fair. He was inactive.
Yeah. If you really ask me, I would say Swift and Scott equal timeshare with Penny getting some. But I think Penny's the best running back on this team. So I still want some Rashad Penny today. And they work 3 backs in almost every game. So I expect Penny to get some work. I think he could break one behind this line. I still might like him the best if we're factoring price into this.
That's fair. I mean, they're all pretty cheap. Penny, I guess he's actually the cheapest. That's interesting. cheaper than Boston. I would not have expected him to be cheaper than Boston Scott. I guess it makes sense with him being inactive the last game. But I think the best analysis is nobody really knows. They're all cheap enough that they are all viable. Like I think probably we see all three of them tonight. The Eagles, like we saw last week, if a running back's not going to play, they're willing to make them inactive. They didn't do that this game. I think it's likely that we see all of them, and I think it's likely that they also run the ball a good amount. If the Eagles get off to any kind of lead, we saw it last year all the time. They would get off to a big lead in the first half, and then they would just run it in the second half a lot. So I don't think they're going to be afraid to run the ball, and I don't think they're going to be afraid to mix up who's running the ball.
Yeah, and Michael, I trust me, if I have a take, you guys know I take on a player, I will 100% say it without the fear of being wrong. And I'm wrong often, but I'm no problem saying it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I have Jake Elliott as the captain in all of my lineups tonight.
That's not real.
No, that's not real.
Okay.
He said that's not real. How do you want to play? We'll take this kind of all over the place, but I think this will be more helpful for everybody viewing the show. Not like, hey, do you like Kirk Cousins and do you like Jalen Hurts today if we're talking about quarterbacks? But what do you think are the best ways to you would agree this is probably the best way to do this. What do you think are the best ways to play them? Not just, oh yeah, I like this guy, I like this guy. You know, are you going with unique captain spots? Are you going with a lot of Captain Hurts and then getting cheap elsewhere, maybe doubling up running backs in Philly without Jalen Hurts? Like, what are some of the builds looking like with and without Hurts for you?
I mean, basically all of my lineups have Hurts somewhere in the lineup, so I can't really say what they look like without her. I mean, Hurts is just clearly the top play of the day. I think he's the safest. He has the highest upside. It's hard to make lineups without Hurts. I think I forced in a few lineups without Hurts, but he's in just so many of my lineups. He looks better in the single game tool in the flex spot. He is very expensive. He's not as expensive as Justin Jefferson, but he is the second most expensive player on the slate. And we've got studs on this slate. So it's hard to really want to play your most expensive player in the captain spot all that often on DraftKings. I'm talking about on FanDuel. Obviously you want to, because there is no salary multiplier, but on DraftKings, we've got Hurts coming in at 15% ownership in the captain spot, 14% chance of being optimal, but we have positive leverage on Hurts in the util, 58% projected util ownership, 63% chance of being optimal. So I prefer playing Hurts in the utility spot. And when you play him, I actually think you could play Hurts naked. I prefer to have at least one Eagles pass catcher in the lineup. So if I'm hand building 5 lineups with Hurts in them, I'm including at least one Eagles pass catcher with him in those lineups. And if he's in the captain spot, I actually still prefer 2, even with Hurts. You don't need it. You don't even need anybody. You could run Hurts naked in the captain spot, but I still prefer at least one. And I think if I had my way, I would do 2 pass catchers in the flex when I have Hurts at captain. But again, you could even run him naked in the captain spot. We saw that happen. We only saw that win once all of last year, the naked quarterback in the captain spot. And
who was
Justin,
it? Do you remember?
Justin Fields.
It was.
Yep.
What game was that?
Week 7. I don't remember who they're. I'm fairly certain it was week 7, but I don't remember who the Bears were playing in week 7.
Probably the Packers.
Year. Yeah. But I think Fields just went off on the ground, and Hurts obviously has that same upside. Hurts has the upside to have multiple touchdowns in a game. So he's one of the few quarterbacks who I would say, like, there's probably 4 or 5 in the league who I would say you can play him in the captain spot naked, but I'm always going to prefer having a quarterback in the captain spot with at least one pass catcher in the flex. With Cousins, I would not play him without multiple pass catchers in the flex. I want at least 2 if I have Cousins in the captain spot. And if I have Cousins in the flex, I want at least one pass catcher from the Vikings somewhere else in the lineup.
Is it fair to say that if we hit 2,000 concurrent viewers, we are currently at, whoa. I was going to say, if we hit 2,000 concurrent viewers, it's imperative that we get to 500 likes on this show.
Oh, that's true.
But we're 290 away with almost 2,100 people watching. Maybe you're right. Maybe today's the day we don't get there. We crushed it on Monday. We had some great people in here.
We had some smarter people in here on Monday. Today, we got the people who can't find the like button.
They're too busy typing "Fly Eagles Fly" just to tilt.
That's right. You're right. That's probably what it is.
Look, I'm not gonna get my hopes up. I'm just saying, if you're out there and you got a second and you got a working hand or 2, if you don't, use your nose and see what we can do.
A lot of organs you can use. Hit that like button.
OMG Father just said, "I'm sorry I atoned." Thank you for atoning for your sins, sir. It is greatly appreciated. It does not go unnoticed. With Kirk Cousins, you've got Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. You know, this game was so interesting last week for the Philadelphia Eagles because Mac Jones and Bill, shout out to this offense, okay, for the Patriots, because they got the ball out quick, avoided the pass rush. This is the only way that they were going to produce anything. And once they started doing that, Mac Jones settled down and looked good. And they just picked apart the Eagles in the middle of the field. They couldn't stop that. They stayed away from the boundaries. They said, I don't want to target Slay. I don't want to target Bradbury. We'll hit the middle of the field. And they did with like Hunter Henry, you know, and Kendrick Bourne a lot in the middle of the field. And it worked. If they had a decent wide receiver outside of Bourne, which is like their number one in that game, they probably win. It worked. But now Bradbury's out. And I am curious to see how they function and what they intend on doing, because last year, one, they didn't have TJ Hawkinson. They didn't have a capable pass catching tight end, right, to eat up the middle of the field, which has been the Eagles' weakness, not the outside. Two, Justin Jefferson got locked down in that game. Locked down. He had like 6 for 41 or something. Slay ate his lunch. But you had Bradbury on the other side. You don't have Bradbury today either. So very curious to see how this. Well, we're over 500 likes already. I'm telling you, you guys are fucking awesome.
Wow.
That is awesome. Crazy. We're going to get to all the super chats in 1 minute. Jordan, if you could kindly send me some of these that I missed earlier on, and we're going to knock them out. And shout out to Chris Williams for gifting all those memberships. But maybe they don't have to do all that avoiding the outside with only Darius Slay out there today. Who are you targeting as far as pass catchers go from the Vikings? Then we can talk about the Birds.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously you want to play Jefferson. Jefferson is the best receiver in the entire NFL. Darius Slay is not going to be able to hold him down twice. So Justin Jefferson is your number one receiver for the Vikings. Love me some Hawkinson. I think he's going to be out there a lot. I think he's going to see some targets. Obviously, you can play some Hawkinson. I think that, so we have Addison projected better than Osborne, and I get that. That's probably right. But it is worth noting that Osborne actually ran like 90 routes on like 96% of pass plays last week, whereas Addison was at like 70%. I think that throughout the year, Addison is going to take on more of that wide receiver 2 role from Osborne, but it's worth noting that Osborne was basically acting as the wide receiver 2 last week, and he's coming in at slightly lower ownership at a lower price tag. So I do kind of really like KJ Osborne here as being a little bit underowned, given his price tag, given his role on the Vikings. And Addison, of course, scored the touchdown last week. So I think he gets a little bit more of a bump in the ownership. If Osborne scores that touchdown instead, I think we're having a different conversation today. So I do really like Osborne as well. So for me, it's Jefferson followed by, I guess what is Hawkinson's price tag? Jefferson followed by,
Hawkinson's not that expensive.
It's only 6,800. So probably Hawkinson followed by maybe even Osborne over Addison, given the price tags. I think that they're going to have similar roles, both very much in play. But I think that those are the 4 Vikings pass catchers that you want. I don't think there's any other. Actually, Josh Oliver, I would say, is the 5th Vikings pass catcher on my radar. Actually, very active last week and coming in at 6% ownership, $800 salary. So 5 Vikings that are really on my radar today.
So check this out. Hold on 1 second. So Addison played 50% of snaps, 56%, ran routes on like 63% of dropbacks.
Yeah.
KJ Osborne played 91% of snaps and ran a route 44 routes on 47 dropbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
So like he was, I saw people with the LOL KJ Osborne when you said that, but if you're looking at what happened in week 1, KJ Osborne actually was, out there more, and he wasn't just standing there. Like he was running routes. Yeah. I wait till we get to Quez Watkins. I'm
looking at Alex in chat. I'm not laughing at you.
You're good. Yeah. Like I think Quez Watkins is totally viable today too. And
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody that's played it, put it this way. If you've played a show, if you're familiar with Showdown, and Neil, how many shows have you and I done together on this?
Yeah, we've done a few.
If you're familiar with Showdown, you know that a guy like Quez Watkins can ruin your life if you have none of them. Yeah. Now you could fade him and be golden because he does nothing. But I think I pointed this out to Matt on this morning show. Quez Watkins last year, okay, against the Vikings, week 2, same week 2, Monday Night Football, 2 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown.
Right? No way.
Week 10, primetime game against Washington, Showdown slate, 4 for 80. So he's had a couple of those games. Green Bay, 3 for 35 and a touchdown. Yeah. Also, I believe a primetime game. Kind of weird what you get from Quez in some of these spots. Remember Byron Pringle primetime games?
Of course I remember Byron Pringle primetime games. Yeah, is he
only produced in primetime?
Yeah, he really did. I haven't heard the name in a while. Is he out of the league? I think he must be.
He went to the Bears. I don't know where he is now.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know where he is now. If Washington? Yeah, Washington.
All
I'm saying is that like Quez Watkins is certainly one of those guys that if he gets that rogue 50-yard touchdown, you go, oh, I should have seen that coming.
Right. I mean, he's done it so many times, and I didn't know what the role was going to be like with Zacchaeus in there this year, but Watkins was still very clearly the wide receiver 3 in week 1. Ran routes on 81% of pass plays for the Eagles last week. He's still 3,000. He's kind of the exact same as he was last year. Like, he's not going to hit that often, and he's not going to hit like in the same way as like AJ Brown or Devontae Smith when they hit, but like he's cheap enough that the hit for Watkins is like puts up 12 fantasy points, and he's going to do that from time to time. So I think, especially in this matchup with the Vikings, I think Quez Watkins is very much in play. The number 4 receiving option.
Want to hit some super chats? Then we can get into some of the big dogs for Philly.
Let's do it.
We can talk about Alexander Mattison in that backfield too. I think they could have a relatively difficult time today, but we'll get there. We got plenty of time. And shout out to all 2,200 people with us. 623 likes. That is, I think, I think that's actually the fastest we've ever gotten to the number.
Well, especially like from when you mentioned it to us getting to like 500. It was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is a smarter audience. These people are smarter than Monday.
Daggone it. We're going to break YouTube doing this stuff.
That's right.
All right. You guys are. Lance Dunbar's burner with a super chat. Thanks. And thanks to all you guys for the super chats and supporting the channel. Goes a long way. We appreciate you. On FanDuel, if you're doing single entry or 3 entries max in large field in a large GPP, what's the best way to gain leverage? Leave salary on table, weird MVP, etc. So he's talking FanDuel, single game, 3 max. What's the best way to get leverage on a less nuanced platform like FanDuel for Showdown?
Yeah, so I think the best way to avoid dupes from what I can tell from the research that I've done is just leaving salary on the table. Like, more than anything else, I think leaving salary on the table is the biggest way to avoid dupes, but it has to be more than like 1,000. I've found if you just leave $1,000 on the table, it's probably not going to be enough. I would typically want to leave at least like 1,500, 2,000. I usually leave slightly more than that even. That'll do it, but it also depends on the size of your contest. So like when you ask these questions, I would advise people, instead of asking for like single entry or 3 max, tell us the number of teams in the field, because I think that's actually more impactful on how you should.
Because there's some single entry with 5,000 and some with 50,000 if it's big, like if it's a
and some with 50. Like it's just like it's all over the place. So that's actually the better indicator of the way you should be building. But typically, if we're assuming like, I don't know, 5,000, you probably don't need to be leaving, as much on the table. Maybe $2,000 on the table or 1,500 would be fine in a field of 5,000 or something. So it's really dependent on that. But I would say leaving salary is the best way to avoid dupes. It's really hard to want to play. Okay. I would play somebody in your MVP spot who is capable of being the highest scorer on the slate. And I mean, even the kickers are capable, but like who you think is like fairly likely. So to me, that's the quarterbacks. It's the studs, maybe as low as like Hawkinson or Goddard. Maybe even like the Eagles, maybe even the running backs, but I wouldn't play like Ty Chandler in the flex, or sorry, in the MVP spot on FanDuel. So just think about like, you literally need the highest scorer in your lineup to be in the MVP spot. So always consider that. But I think you can get a little bit off the beaten path by just playing like AJ Brown or Devontae Smith in the MVP spot. I think that those are good leverage spots. And
by the way, you're talking about the field size. That's why with the contest generator that we have, that's why you can select your pool size.
Yeah.
You can select 250, 500, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, any of that, which makes it so much better. Like if I want to run Sims for this Millie today, you go all the way up to the top. For the single entry $15, I'll do it at 5,000. For some of these, you do it at 2,000. You generate lineups, thousands of them at a time, and then you sim them, and you see the highest simulated ROI. They're playing them against each other thousands of times. And what it's doing, it's predicting what the field is going to look like. That's what it's doing, predicting what the field is going to look like. And we can't do that up here on our own.
No.
It's an amazing tool. I'm actually, next super chat you answer, I'm going to finish simming these lines. I never used to be able to do this before we had this on a show. When I sim, I'm going to put them in, I'm going to upload them to CSV, and we're going to be golden. 15% off, guys, all of our NFL packages, whether it's the Sims data package, or which is the same thing as the Sims Max package for NFL, except the Max package allows you to generate a lot more contests. So like if you're single entry 3-max player, you could get this data package and be in business because you're already getting the lineup generator, the contest generator, or the lineup simulator, I should say, too, post-contest simulator. And if you're wondering what they are, check them out for yourself. You will love them. Ownership projections, top stacks tool, top single game plays tool for Showdown. And by the way, we've been using simulations, Alex Baker, forever. That's what the top stacks tool is. Mm-hmm. That's what the top plays tool is for the Showdown. You're getting everything. Premium Discord, everything you need to build lineups is in this single package. You don't need to go anywhere else, buy any add-ons, nothing. You don't need, you don't need companion pieces. It's just this 15% off. We won't be doing this much longer. If you want to get in, hit that up. Or if you want to try a week for free of all of it, go to ownersbox.com. By the way, links to everything that I'm talking about in the description and in chat. Go to ownersbox.com. Take advantage of their $500 first match deposit bonus. Take advantage of awesome super flex contest, 175K prize pool for the big contest this week, 50K up top, and it overlaid by 20% last week. It's the best contest out there right now, hands down, because of that overlay. Minimum deposit is $10 if you want a free week of everything we've got. My recommendation, take advantage of the bonuses, but however you guys want to play it. You want a month, 15% off, a month off a month of all of our stuff. You want to get the free week, sign up at Owner's Box. All the links down there in the description and chat. You have any questions, hit me up on the X at Laffy_D. My DMs are always open. I'm happy to help. All right, Neil, couple more super chats. Let's rip through this. And if you guys have any, hit me up. Anthony asks, favorite FanDuel flex play and leverage MVP play. I mean, it kind of goes off of what you were saying earlier, but
all right,
we'll keep this one short.
Leverage MVP play. Let me see. So we have, I'd say the tight ends, Goddard and Hawkinson, both look pretty good. I think either one of them is live to score a couple touchdowns and end up being the highest scoring player. And we got Goddard at 5% ownership, Hawkinson at 4%. So I would say they are both very much in play. It looks like Madison's actually a little bit overowned. So that'll be my answer. Just I would say the tight ends would be my favorite leverage MVP plays on FanDuel. And if you're just talking in general, so like in the util, let's see. I mean, KJ Osborne not coming in with a ton of ownership. We've got him at, I guess we got him at 21% ownership. So not as low owned as I was thinking. We actually have Jordan Addison on FanDuel. He's 10,500. So I think that's the reason we've got Osborne at 7,000, Jordan Addison. So this might be a pay up to be contrarian spot for Jordan Addison. I do think that even if he's not running as many routes as Osborne, he's always live to score a touchdown, see several targets. Like he's still going to be involved and he still has the talent. So kind of like Jordan Addison as a leverage play in the flex. And then I think the running backs for the Eagles are also interesting. We've got Penny at 7,000. So they look way more expensive than they are on DraftKings. That generally drives people away from them. So sometimes I think you can find in these uncertain spots, like with the running backs, because the price tags are a little bit higher, people are a little bit struggle to play them. So with Penny being somebody who, like, we just don't know what the role is. We've got him projected for 12% ownership on DraftKings, on FanDuel. I think that's interesting. Boston Scott, maybe even more, 4% projected ownership at 7,500 for Boston Scott. That's probably one of my favorite FanDuel leverage plays in the flex is Boston Scott.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, I'm David Porter using his free super chat member for 27 months. My man. Thanks for the support, dude. Fly, Eagles, fly, he says. Weatherman7 just sent us a super chat just to send this one. Thanks, dude. If you have questions, let us know. And as I mentioned, Chris Williams gifted everybody those subs. Make sure to shout out Chris and say thank you if you got one. All right, so I want to talk about the pass catchers for Philly. We can get into kickers defense as well, and also Alexander Madison in that backfield for Minnesota. But yeah, Goddard I like today. And for what it's worth, I do like Hawkinson a decent amount in this spot. I think he could have a very solid game. I think Quez is a perfectly reasonable play. I think he has slight negative leverage on DraftKings, but I don't think it's anything significant, right? Yeah, like mine, it's basically negligible there. He's getting 12% utility ownership. Makes sense. I don't really want to captain him, but I think there's some weird ways to captain split guys. But AJ Brown is always going to be viable here in this matchup. I'll start trusting Brian Flores because I've always liked him, but I'll start trusting him in his defense specifically with a lot of unknowns when they face a good offense. If they can come out there today and maybe in next tough game, but that wasn't a true test against Baker Mayfield. They were fine, but it wasn't a true test.
Well, and did you hear that Baker Mayfield came out and was like, I knew their signs in the second half? Like, that's like, how do you, and they played fairly well if you consider that Baker Mayfield knew their signs for the second half, like figured out what the defensive signs are, knew what the Vikings were trying to do. Maybe there's reason for some optimism if they can maybe hide those a little bit better.
Possibly, for sure. But Baker Mayfield would struggle against the 6-man defense. So
True.
I don't know.
I know. Yeah.
But no, like I'm saying, that wasn't disparaging at all. I'm just saying if they come out and they're strong today, then that's a different story. But AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, those guys are always going to be viable. There's no real conversation to be had around them outside of who do we want to prioritize? Because you can't play Jefferson, Smith, Brown, Hurts, Cousins, everybody together. I do like Goddard though. 5,800. I think I don't want to say they make an effort to get him the ball because of last week, him getting blanked, but don't think that's just going to happen every week. He's going to have some real nice games. And he's also a significant threat inside the red zone. You could see a 1 or 2 touchdown game for Goddard and not be shocked at all.
No, exactly. And that's part of the reason that I like him as a potential leverage MVP spot on FanDuel is just like, maybe they don't force him the ball, but as you say, like they don't really need to force him the ball. Like he's going to be a part of their game plan going forward. I think last week was a little bit fluky, unfortunate for me, I got to say. Going back to this Coach Speak Index seems to think that there were some positive things that Sirianni said about like last year. He said after week 1 that they got to get Devonta Smith the ball more, and then the following week Devonta Smith went completely off after goose egging in week 1, and Sirianni said similar things about Dallas Goedert. So maybe there is some reason to think that they're going to get the ball. They're going to make an effort to get the ball to Dallas Goedert a little bit more. And even if you don't want to factor that in at all, like he's a talented tight end. I think he's going to be a big part of the offense for the year and probably under-owned because of the goose egg last week.
Push Moonrock super chat. Who do you think the main man to watch tonight is? I think it's
Justin Jefferson.
I think it's Penny because I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going to happen with him. I think it's Penny.
I guess I don't understand the question because to me it's always Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, unless he's playing Tyreek Hill and then you watch the best receiver on the field.
Oh, come on now.
Hutch Boy said, super chat. Thanks, Hutch. Good to see you, man. Word on the Sims. Yeah, Hutch had a nice little takedown with the Sims, I think, a couple days ago. Actually, it might have been even our MLB Sims. I don't know. We had a lot of big winners for Showdown Sims because it works for Showdown. Also, the Sims work for Owner's Box too. We got Owner's Box in core. We're the only place out there that has Owner's Box for the Sims. In the event that you already signed up there, you're getting the Sims for Owner's Box. Nowhere else has that. Freddie, who's your favorite punt play tonight? For me, Neil, I'll tell you right now. My favorite punt plays are, well, there's a couple of them. Honestly, it would be Penny. It would be Josh Oliver, who Matt astutely pointed out today. Josh Oliver actually played a good amount last game, and they did not use a wide receiver 4 at all. Never stepped on the field. Naylor didn't step on the field. Powell didn't step on the field. Oliver played almost 50% of snaps and actually ran some routes. So I think Oliver at 800, I wanted to mention him before we're too late. That's a good spot. There's a lot of punts that I think are viable. Rashad Penny is 1,600. Boston Scott is 2,200. If you consider Quez at 3,000 a punt, I think that makes sense too. You have more than you usually would today, and that's for sure.
Yeah, I think you just named all of the punts that I would have named. The Eagles running backs, Josh Oliver, Quez Watkins. I think that's essentially it as far as like true punts that would make some sense. I guess the defenses, like the Vikings defense getting 12% projected ownership is kind of interesting. So yeah, but kickers and defense is kind of always in play. But outside of those, yeah, I'd say it's Oliver, it's the Eagles defenses, the Eagles running backs, and it is Quez Watkins.
Travis Meyer, member for 1 month, using that super chat. Watkins and Oliver captain ownership. Quez Watkins captain ownership we have at less than 1%. Oliver is at 0.4% projected captain ownership. Jorge, go ahead.
I was going to say, let me throw out one more point. I do think that Olamide Zaccheaus works as a punt option. I know he ran like 7 total routes last week, so was not extremely involved in his Eagles debut, but there's at least a possibility that they use him a little bit more this week. And there's also a possibility that they don't need to. If he can run 7 routes, score 1 touchdown at his price tag, could pay it off. So I think Zaccheaus is probably the final punt option that I would include in my player pool.
Fresca super chat. Any ham love? No, if you wanted to get crazy, maybe they would do something and use him in. It's possible, but you got like he's a fullback, so don't love it.
He was targeted 3 times last week. Like I think he's in play for like the largest field stuff outside of really large field. I do. He is the final one that I would say is in my player pool. I would at least consider.
I'm with you. I get it. The fact that he was targeted last game is interesting. I just don't know how. Well, you know what? It's a showdown. What does it matter, right? You're right. He's the last guy that you could even consider getting any exposure to. That's probably the way to put it. Like he's the last guy, but he's there.
Yeah, he is there. But is he in the player pool? I've not seen him in my fantasy cruncher. For DraftKings.
I mean, he should be.
You would think he would be. I think I wrote him up.
Yeah, he's there.
Huh. Okay.
$400. Yep. On DraftKings, at least. Jorge with a super chat. Shout out to Jorge. Best cheap player below 4K for flex on DraftKings. And chat, believe what Laffy says. NFL sims are the best. Plus, check his Odd Shopper content. I'm a true believer on his picks. You're the man, dude. Thank you. Yeah, I put out picks for every game on Odd Shopper, our Odd Shopper channel, our betting channel. Thank you. Neil has a great pick'em video out that I watched on the Odd Shopper channel today, hitting all the pick'em sites for NFL for tonight's game. But yeah, I hit them all. I hit the primetime games, whatever. Eric has great videos. Ben, Greg, everyone out there doing some awesome videos. So check that out. He said Sims are the best, though. Yeah, he took down 9th in the Millie Maker with the Sims last week.
Oh, Jorge was talking about.
Of course he's going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 9th out of 1 million plus. That's insane.
Pretty awesome, man. Scott Belinas, $5. Philadelphia Loffies versus Minnesota Shamans. Oh yeah, the Showdown Shaman. I forgot to mention that. Come on, guys, make a wager. But I don't.
What kind of odds are you going to give me?
But that's the problem is I don't make wagers on the Eagles because I like to stay as pessimistic as possible. So like, you're never going to see me betting the Eagles to win for a pride perspective.
Yeah, and I have no confidence in the Vikings either. So
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, I'll bet you the Eagles lose.
Yeah, I'll bet you my good mood tonight versus your good mood tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I'll bet you I'll drink more than you tonight, depending on how the game goes.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Bruce Booth, last pick left with $200. Where do you
have $200 left on DraftKings?
I don't think you're viable there, honestly. Who would you go?
Zaccheaus. I'd throw it at maybe.
I guess you're right. I guess you have to.
Like, I don't feel confident. It would be Zaccheaus. Maybe Johnny Munt is like in play, but yeah, it would be Zaccheaus for me if anybody. If you just have 200 left. Yeah,
and maybe Powell or Naylor get out there or something, but they didn't see the field.
Yeah.
My only problem with that is you don't really. Not to say that if you're building a lot of lineups, you're probably going to do that. You're probably going to get to some of that, but I think there's enough like dirt cheap options where you don't necessarily have to go all the way to the bottom if you don't want to.
True. Yeah. And I also, I mean, I go out of my way to not use the full salary cap. It sounds like you're going to be using your full salary cap. So you might be duping with a lot of other people, which, it's, if you want to dupe, that's fine. But I try to avoid it.
Phil said, do the hot chip challenge like Josh did. Dude, I did that. I ate the chip with him and I won that bet. I just felt bad. I already did it. You can't do it anymore. They pulled it because that kid died.
I saw that story. Then I saw somebody else say that he ate like 15. And I did not go and read the story. So I have no idea.
I said that because I read it in the comments and people started.
Oh, you said that.
People. Well, no, because I read it in the comments.
Oh, gotcha.
Someone had tagged me and said, so I was like, I read the comments, like he ate 17 of them. So I said, oh, 817. And people were like, where did you see
making
that?
shit up.
That's unverified, baseless information. It's like, sorry, he ate 47 and then just got him more upset. And then, like, listen, man, we don't even know if that's what it's from.
Yeah.
But that sucked. Jay with a super chat. Ty Chandler got a lot off him. Maybe got a lot of him. Not really. No. And I'll tell you what, I think the toughest spot for the Vikings today is probably this run game, missing their starting center. They got that. I think the run game could struggle. And someone asked earlier, they were like, hey, if the Vikings go down early, do they abandon the run? I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings abandon the run if they're up. So
yeah.
How much, I'm not, obviously Alexander Madison's viable and he could, who knows, maybe he gets 2 goal line touchdowns, but not my favorite play today at his current ownership. We have him relatively owned, minus 5% leverage. I think that's the lowest leverage score we have on this slate.
I currently have 4% Madison, 0% Ty Chandler. That is my level of confidence in the Vikings run game.
Out of 150?
No, I'm not playing on it. I have 26 lineups. Yeah.
But still,
I've stopped
that's not a lot.
When I'm just not playing a lot of these guys. And I thought about, like, should I boost Madison, try to get to a little bit more, and ultimately decided, like, yeah, I do not have confidence in this Vikings run game against the Eagles defense, missing their center.
What do you want to do with the kickers and defense? We still got 1,800 plus watching with us. Shout out to you guys. And one other thing, if you're putting the bet on this game tonight, do it on Caesars. You're getting $250 in bonus bets if you bet 50, even if you win. Say you want to go a little wild, you love the Vikings, bet that money line, get a real nice hefty payout on that $50 and get a nice little windfall coming in after that, $250, 5 separate $50 bonus bets. It's good stuff, man. Links in the description and chat. Take the free money when you can. Get odds, best odds, be on as many books as possible, and take the free money when they offer it. Caesars is trying to up their game in the online space. Here's one way to do it. Links in the description and in chat. 50 into 250. Win or lose the bet, doesn't matter. You get it either way, 100% guaranteed. Got to be 21 years or older to gamble. If you or someone who has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. And turn your pop-up blocker off if you're going to click this, because it's weird when it's in the YouTube link. But anyway, Neil, kickers and defense, where are we going?
Yeah, so I have a bit of the kick, both kickers in the teens in terms of how much I have of them. I think they're both in play. They both look like they're about appropriately owned. We have Elliott at 19% projected ownership, Joseph at 16% projected ownership. Typically, I prefer to play the favorite, so it seems like the kicker on the favorite. It seems like that is fair. Let me look. We've got Joseph, 16% util ownership, 16% chance to be an optimal. As usual, we do have a little bit of positive leverage in the single game tool on kickers, but I'm always cautious about it because I do think, like, odds of being optimal doesn't factor in the amount of money you win when they're optimal. And I do think that these kickers, when they're optimal, it's usually using the full salary cap, and you're going to be duped 1,000 times. So I'm not that interested in playing the kickers in the captain spot, just because I think those lineups are going to be duped. But they both look slightly underowned in the util. 16% for Joseph, 19% for Jake Elliott. Both have very, very slight positive leverage in the util. Eagles defense is interesting. Kirk Cousins, we've got primetime Kirk. I think that might be a real thing. I don't know to what extent I buy it, but it's kind of a long sample size at this point of Kirk Cousins struggling in primetime games. We got the Eagles at 20% projected ownership in the util, 22% chance of being optimal. So some positive leverage on the Eagles. Certainly could be another. Would this be the third showdown in a row where the defense goes off? I don't remember.
God.
Yeah. So I think it's
Cowboys
possible again.
Cowboys, Jets, and then what? Yeah.
I forget what the last one was.
Cowboys and then the Jets. You're saying if this was the third,
yeah.
Cowboys Sunday night game.
That's right. And then
the Lions did have a defensive touchdown to open the season too, against the Chiefs.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that is right. Which I was actually just about to bring that game up for the purpose of talking about the Vikings defense, because you don't look at it and think, I want to play the Vikings defense against this high-powered Eagles offense, but that was a great indicator. Patrick Mahomes throws a perfect ball bounces off his receiver's hand and ends up being a pick six. That happens all the time. Like it's a fluky game. Flukes happen all the time. So you think about it, you're like, I don't want to play the Vikings defense. Like they're just going to get crushed. They're going to score negative points, whatever. But certainly viable. Weird things happen. Could bounce off Quez Watkins' hand. The Vikings return it for a pick six. So I think that there are ways for it to work out. And I mean, Hurts only threw 6 interceptions all of last year. That is pretty nuts after 9 the previous year. But there are ways for it to work out. So I think the Vikings defense is viable.
I do too. I definitely look. They're all any of them are viable at any time. There's
Right.
never we can say whatever the hell we want. They're always going to be viable no matter what. Are you how about this? Instead of building a lineup, this will be easier for people if they're trying to get some last minute fixes in. I think this will help more than anything else. What are your popular, most exposed type of builds today? Just looking at like captain and maybe biggest fades, biggest stands that you're taking to close this show out.
So I have a ton of Hurts. Steve in chat just asked, is it okay if I'm running 20 lineups to have 100% Hurts? I think that is totally fine. I have my final run, I have 82% Hurts. So I guess I've come down off the 100% Hurts. But yeah, still, I think it's totally fine to play all of the Hurts. I think that he has the highest floor, the highest ceiling, clearly the best play on the entire slate. Yeah, so I have 20% Hurts in the captain spot, and when I have Hurts in the captain spot, I do, it appears, have at least one Eagles pass catcher and generally more than one in the flex, which is my preference. Looks like I have, just scrolling through my lineups, I don't see anything standing out. Like I'm doing some 5-1 Eagle stacks. I'm doing some, I don't know if I have any 5-1 Viking stacks, but I've got some 4-2 Viking stacks at the very least. I'm kind of all over the place in terms of construction, but I do have a ton of Eagles onslaught teams. I do have, okay, I have one lineup here at least that has 5 Vikings in it. Kirk Cousins with 4 of his pass catchers in the flex, and then an Eagles player in it. So I'm all over the place in terms of lineup constructions. I kind of do that intentionally. So I set my cap on captains at 20% because I like to spread it out. I like to have, kind of a wide portfolio. So that is the way that I approached it. And I don't know that anything's really sticking out to me in terms of like constructions. I think I'm just kind of all over the place.
Are you doing anything different if it were to come to single entry contest today? Like anything, do you kind of tamp down the craziness when it comes to these single? That's why I like the Sims, because when when I limit the contest size, it doesn't give me the same lineups. If I go 2,000 to 10,000, I'm getting something that looks for sure different than before.
Yeah, if I'm doing single entry, I'm leaving less money on the table. So I'm playing the largest field stuff. I'm leaving a good amount of salary, like more than $1,000 on the table. I'll say that. And I think in single entry and small field, like single entry, I probably would not want to use Jalen Hurts in the captain spot, just because I think that is going to be pretty chalky in single entry. I guess this is where we differentiate single entry from small field. In small field, I still think that it is very viable. Like he clearly has the highest ceiling and floor. So I think that he would be a great small field captain. But in single entry, I think that most people are going to immediately go to Hurts in the captain spot. So single entry, I might want to differentiate a little bit there. But yeah, generally I am getting a little bit less crazy in smaller fields. I'm definitely building for a specific game script. Like if you're hand building, most likely you're trying to think of what you want the game script to be. So maybe you put Hurts in the captain, you say, I think the Eagles are going to crush the Vikings. You throw Hurts in the captain with couple pass catchers, you throw the Eagles defense in there, and then you throw KJ Osborne. And I don't know, there's I tamp down the crazy for sure in smaller field stuff.
Hey, let me ask you this. If you had to right now, who is the winning captain today? And which one of the Eagles backfield members will you want at the end of the day? Which one will you want in your lineup? And who are you gonna want at captain?
Hurts and Swift. I think Hurts is still like by far the likeliest to be the winning captain. And I think that Swift is the likeliest to be the lead back for the Eagles. And I think that he's also cheap enough that like I'm willing to just bet on it at that $4,000 price tag.
All right.
Do you have an answer there for the Eagles? Or are you gonna You're gonna stick with Boston Scott or Rashad Penny?
No, I just want it to be Penny so damn bad is what I want.
Okay, you don't necessarily believe it, you just want it. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I don't believe it. I think you're probably right that you end up getting to that Swift probably gets the most. If it was Scott, it wouldn't completely shock me. Unfortunately, it wouldn't shock me either if it was just a full out 3-headed monster of a committee that ruins our day. That's doable as well, you know.
But
that's
the shitty thing with the Eagles running backs is it could be a 3-headed monster and they could all get there. Like, it's not like a lot of teams like, oh, they're a 3-headed monster, so nobody's going to get there. The Eagles, especially against this Vikings run defense, it could be a 3-headed monster and they all put up like 15 fantasy points.
Oh yeah, I mentioned it this morning on the Showdown strategy show. Week 1 of last year, Philadelphia Eagles, Detroit Lions, 4 different. Boston Scott scored a rushing touchdown. Miles Sanders scored a rushing touchdown. Kenny Gainwell scored a rushing touchdown, and Jalen Hurts scored a rushing touchdown.
Yep.
4 of them.
I remember that. Yep.
4. It can happen. You could absolutely see Hurts not throw a touchdown today, but rush for one, and 2 other running backs rush for one as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey man, good stuff as always. Follow Neil at Player Q DFS. You guys are, we got to 748 likes. 740. Wow. That might be a record for a live before lock NFL showdown show.
I'm impressed.
Me too. You know what it was? You got people riled up.
They were pissed off that I said the people from Monday were smarter.
Appreciate you guys. Follow me at Loughran_D LOUGHY_D on Twitter. You know what you should do? You should follow both of us now so you can see which one of us is tilting at what time tonight. And then talk shit and we'll have some fun. Shout out to Jordan Klein as always for producing this one. And we will see you back here tomorrow. Strategy show, 11 a.m. Eastern. Peace.